Perfect. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm so delighted to be here in this space with you today. My name's Paulina Cameron. My pronouns are she, her, and I have the honor of being the CEO of the forum. As we begin, I'm going to start by recognizing that I am based on and dialing in today from the stolen land of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh people. As a first-generation white settler, I feel a tremendous gratitude to be able to be here, that my family was able to come here, as well as a responsibility to the elders and the peoples of this land to remain committed towards a journey towards truth and reconciliation. As the forum community spans across the country, we invite you to let us know in the chat where you are dialing in from. We'd love to know where you're located today. And we will also put in a link, nativeland.ca, which is a great resource to learn more about the unceded land that you're in. But as we do that, let's take a look. I'm going to take a look to see where folks are dialing in from. Montreal, Quebec, Vancouver, but in Los Angeles. Oh, nice. Hello from LA. Edmonton, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh, Toronto, Barcelona. My goodness, we have gone, okay, folks, we've gone global. We've gone international. Love it. Love it. Officially calling it Stola territory in Langley. Welcome. Victoria, BC, North Vancouver, Abbotsford. Amazing. So great. So great to hear. Thanks, everyone, for sharing. And before we begin the conversation, I'm also going to take a moment to reflect and specifically give voice here to the atrocities that women in Iran are currently facing. We've sure seen and read a lot about it in the last week, 2 weeks, starting from the death of Mahsa Amini to now many others since then. And we want to express that as an organization, we stand in solidarity with our Iranian community here and globally. As we've been reading what has been happening in the stories, I've been reflecting on a quote that many of you may have seen circulating, and it's Rosemary Brown's quote, "Until all of us have made it, none of us have made it." And that quote right now feels so timely in moments like this, particularly so, and it always feels so timely. And here at the forum, our contribution to supporting all of us making it is to show up every day in support of women entrepreneurs so that they have the access, so that all women entrepreneurs have the access to what they need to thrive, to create meaningful economic and social contributions to support themselves and their communities and their families. And we do so in partnership with you, our amazing community. And it's why we're here today. So typically, this gathering for our quarterly impact events are made up exclusively of our community of donors and sponsors and mentors. And we do so to have a conversation around the tangible impact of their support. Today, we wanted to share that impact with our whole community and also provide a welcoming conversation and space to expand this community, because we have always believed and continue to believe that we need to grow the champions that come together to support our work and to support women entrepreneurs so that we can be stronger together. So I'm so thrilled to see so many new faces to this quarterly conversation and hope you continue joining us for those. We're here today as we close off our first quarter. Our year end is the end of June. So we just went through a period of deep planning and thinking and preparing ahead for the rest of our programming year. And a conversation that has been very alive for our team is capital. What is it? What are the different types of capital? And how do we each have the power to and responsibility? Oh, of course I have a phone call coming in now. Of course I do. Not now, phone call, not now, spam. But if it's a cruise, I promise to take all of you with me. But we all have, we all have capital that we can harness in support of the values that we believe in. And where we typically are used to talking about financial capital, there's also social capital and wisdom capital and connection capital and community capital and inspiration and resource capital. And so today I'm so excited to be diving into this conversation with the incredible Jennifer Twiner-McCarron, who has activated over many years her capitals in so many ways of support for the forum. As I introduce Jennifer and welcome her to the screen, a few Zoom housekeeping notes that probably most of you are very familiar with this platform over the last couple of years. For those of you who would like or require it, closed captioning is available. You can enable it via the Zoom preferences on your computer below. Please feel free to pop into the chat if you're having any issues with it. And I do want to note on the chat is not anonymous, so everyone who is in the chat can see it when you message to everyone, unless you specifically message someone directly. And of course, our team is on standby both in the chat, or if you need to reach out to someone, hello@theforum.ca is monitored at all times. All right, so Jennifer is here with us and I'm so excited. Let me introduce you, Jennifer. Jen is the CEO of Thunderbird Entertainment Group and the company's kids and family content arm, Atomic Cartoons. Jennifer joined Atomic Cartoons as head of production in 2011. Under her tremendous leadership, the studio grew from 25 artists to more than 1,200 today. Jennifer has led production on multiple award-winning titles, many of which, especially if you might have small children, you may be very familiar with. I will disclose Molly of Denali is a favorite in my household, and I was sharing with Jen during last week's National Truth and Reconciliation Day here in Canada. That is what my kids and I used for education and for learning, and it was an incredible platform for that, for my 3-year-old to actually engage with and understand this kind of content. Jen continued her growth within the organization and was promoted to CEO of Atomic Cartoons in 2016 and CEO of Thunderbird in 2018, joint roles because one of them doesn't sound like enough, which she continues to hold today. Throughout the years, Jen's work has received several recognitions, including multiple Leo Award, an Elan, a DTV, 2 Emmys, and a Peabody, among others. In 2022, she was named by Business in Vancouver as one of their 5 most influential women and by Bay Street Bull to their Women of the Year list. Jen was also named the Equity and Inclusion Champion in BC Business's 2021 Women of the Year Awards, WXN Most Powerful Woman in Canada, and Executive of the Year by Playback Magazine. Thank you, Jennifer, for taking the time to be with us today.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me. And as we all know, that listening to all of those awards, definitely, I'm lucky to work with the teams I do, but that's a credit to all of the people working here, not me.
I have heard you many times begin like that, Jen, and I think it's such a tremendous testament because I know the truth and honesty that comes with, and that is
true.
The value that you place on it. So we've talked a little bit about this concept of capital, how we're all, typically we think of money, we think of financial capital. And one of our cornerstone programs, which you have been such a champion of, is our Odlum Brown Forum Pitch, which is all about breaking down the barriers of access to capital for women entrepreneurs in all of the different forms of capital. Sorry, I just have a call coming in now via Zoom. What is happening today? Okay, I'm going to ignore that. Clearly, we're all going on cruises together. My goodness. Okay, ignore it. So, Jen, when we think about all these forms of capital, what do you think? What comes to mind for you? What feels really resonant and important?
Well, I love what the forum does in terms of elevating women and getting women in on deals and the money, and the sort of platform that needs to happen to succeed. I think capital comes in many forms, be it financial, be it reputational, be it goodwill, hard work, all of those things, which I know the forum champions. And I think the more people and women faces that we see step forward, the more the notion of if you can see it, you can be it, sort of resonates. And that means, I believe, thanks to the great work the forum's doing, more women will get capital to succeed in their dreams. And then other women will look at it and say, okay, that is possible. I'm witnessing it happen. And I think that's so crucial.
That inspiration piece and that visibility piece. I really wanted to touch on that because you work in an industry, which, broadly we call content or media, however you want to describe it, but you work in an industry where so often it can actually be seen as sometimes perpetuating more harm in that by who is or isn't chosen to be put forward or put on platforms. And I'm curious how how you have navigated that, what decisions or values or choices that you've made to change that.
Yeah, well, I love that question, Paulina. Thank you. I think working in content, you do have an obligation for everybody, regardless of race or gender, to find themselves in content reflected back in a positive light. And early on in my career, I was, lucky enough. One of my first producing jobs was on all the Barbie movies. So Barbie is a Nutcracker, Barbie is Rapunzel, Barbie and Swan Lake, and that was when I was in my 20s and kind of coming up the ladder. And my job was to work with Mattel. They would send a toy line. I would hire everybody and make a movie that would come out on, DVD. Back when there was DVDs. And every year I would say to Mattel, because there was always a wedding during one of these movies, and I would say, do they have to get married? I don't understand why that has to be the prize with the prince at the end. And really? And so then Mattel said, yes, they do. It's part of the whole toy sales and whatnot, the machines and capital behind it. Why don't you come down and watch one of our focus testing where we bring all the kids in the room and we see what toys they like? So I did. I went down and they had hundreds of kids from all different backgrounds come into a room where they had all these different toy setups. And all of the little girls ran towards the wedding dress Barbie.
Mm,
And it didn't matter what race they were from. And I felt like this pit, this sickness in my stomach, realizing A, the power of content, B, where it can go wrong, and C, the images that we're putting out. And that was a really seismic change for me in
mm,
terms of, I always think, well, what are we doing? We're trying to create content that makes people happy, that maybe helps parents boil potatoes peacefully and safely. I mean, that really is the value of what we're doing. But at least if we're doing that, we can make sure that there's a consciousness behind it, that we are trying to put out content where everybody can find themselves reflected back in a positive light, and those role models exist for people to find.
mm. When you were going through that and really integrating that into the work, did you experience any kind of pushback? Was anything hard? Was it hard to, I don't know, navigate or get anyone on board, or even like find and source it? In the forums world, a comment I'm very often met with, which my team knows I like have to consciously try to not roll my eyes at, is the comment of, well, there's just not enough women. There's just not enough diversity. We can't find them. So I'm curious, as you were kind of implementing and really emphasizing and putting priority on that, were you met with any challenges like that or other ones?
Oh, absolutely. And so I think, what I've thought is if you try to boil the ocean at the same time, it's really hard.
Mhm.
But if you try to boil one pot at a time, that's all it takes to slowly try and make small steps to make a difference. And I think, as a woman, I've started out as an office production assistant, at the very bottom of the ladder. And quickly, I wasn't talented myself. I wasn't going to be a good writer or director or anything like that. But I did find a passion for trying to create an environment where people felt safe.
Mhm.
No one felt like a number. Everybody felt honored. The best work could flourish. And, uh, you know, keeping a great attitude throughout and trying to find a place of empathy had always helped me navigate those blocks. I'd always taken promotions as they came because I thought, oh, here's a chance to lead a little bit more and maybe make some of those differences, be a little bit more empowered to create some of the change that I would like to see, was always such a big motivator. But even when I came time to become CEO of Thunderbird, when the board asked me to step forward, that was the first time I was like, oh, I don't know. And we have a fantastic board. Frank Drustra, who's one of the, a big supporter of the forum as well, is an incredible man. And he sort of said, well, what are you scared of? And I said, well, I'm really scared of not being the type of, wife, mother, daughter,
Mm,
sister that I would like to be. And I'm also really, scared of losing your guys' money, to be honest. And he said, well, if you lose the money, it's as much our problem as yours, and you have to make work for you. And he said, look around the conversation. I think you guys have highlighted this, that there's more CEOs in Canada named John
John or David. I
than,
think there's like three
than,
or four of the names. Yeah.
than there are women.
Mhm.
And so going back to the old adage, if you want to be architects of change and push things you believe in, then, step forward, go for it. And so I did, and it's been wonderful. And the other thing I had said was, I can't, running a public company, I can't put, I'll never be able to put the bottom line ahead of people. But I actually think putting people ahead of the bottom line leads to a healthier, better company. And that, I've been really lucky to have that fully supported. And then, being aware with two girls, myself and a son, that the more women, these inspiring women and entrepreneurs and people that can step forward, then it normalizes everything. And there's more places to look for mentorship and for guidance. But definitely, to answer your question directly, have met so many oppositions along the way, like everyone and everything. And I think just getting to that place of empathy, where's the person coming from, and never giving up. Like, I've always thought, what's the worst thing that can happen? It doesn't work out. Is that the worst thing? No. You just pick yourself back up and do something else.
Mm-hmm. That's such a great trajectory story. I really appreciated hearing that. It made me reflect how there's a conversation that often happens around imposter syndrome, and you said something that really reframed actually a lot of the common answers around it, because you talked about leadership opportunities as a way to make more of the impact that you saw that could happen, which from my experience, a lot of women entrepreneurs, women leaders, male leaders who are really rooted in values and really wanting to make transformative change are so passionate and committed to the impact. And if we could view that, view leadership opportunities or view stepping into moments of courage as ways that we can then create more of that impact, that would probably feel like a really supportive and perhaps a different way to think about opportunities that maybe for a moment feel bigger than us.
Absolutely. And when I first started, running the public company, and I would go to investor meetings, especially, and it was me with 40 men in a room or whatnot, I would think, oh my gosh, what am I doing here? What if, I don't have a degree in finance and I shouldn't be here? And I had all those doubts. But then I think I just go back to when I was in those positions where I'd felt maybe frustrated with some of
Mhm,
the way things were being run.
mhm,
And instead of just sitting there complaining about things, you always have an opportunity to change things. And my parents would always say, "You're only going to get out of something what you put into it." So the
mhm.
harder you try at something, the more you work at it, the more rewarding it will be. And so, yeah, just a chance to, if you get a little bit more autonomy, if you get a little bit more leadership scope, then you can help change the narrative. And again, not feeling overwhelmed by the narrative that needs changed, like that whole boiling the ocean adage. Like, it's
Yeah.
hard to take on everything at once, but those little small incremental things go so far, and suddenly you'll have a movement.
I'm wondering if you could give us an example of one or two incremental things that you've done within your company that you think has been the building block to some of these changes.
Yeah, I think, to having a conversation with PBS and GBH about Molly of Denali, and maybe we do a show with the community out of Denali in Alaska, and let's just go for it. Um, and through that, approaching it in a different way so that we had authentic voices at every turn. Because when you have authentic voices, you get new stories that haven't been told. And that was a lot of small, chopping wood scenarios. But eventually we ended up with over 60 Indigenous interns, crew members. All the voices were authentic, the directorial talent, and those people are all working full time in the industry today. And
Mhm.
then we were able to, work with the Canadian government and say what's missing. Okay, well, people are losing their language, the original
Mhm.
languages are being lost. But we have an opportunity now that we created a pop culture moment to reintroduce those indigenous languages in school systems, in communities, so that the elders can pass on, the language, so that they're dubbed in. That every Molly of Denali show will be dubbed in the different languages across North America, and it's a really, I think, great way. Again, that it's like if you hand somebody a stack of files this big, it just feels like I don't even know where to begin. I can't start, I'm done. But just that small, okay, we've got a shared value system. How do we start to chip away at things? And maybe then it can grow into something.
So beautiful. And I love that what I heard you talk a lot about is in partnership too. So who do we bring in? How do we support? And how do we make it collective? And what strikes me is that um, in impact work, but in everyday running business, an element that is needed for that is a little bit of ego removal and of being able to get really aligned and clear on the outcome we're all trying to drive towards. And I'm curious, Jen, how you have you always been that kind of a leader? Have you fostered that? How do you bring that into a workplace? And I'm kind of making a couple assumptions here, but also an industry that from the outside feels like a possibly strong, male-dominated, sometimes aggressive environment. This feels differing from that this way in style.
Well, you're 100% right. That Paulina, there are those elements. I think um, I've always really just thought that you're not really a leader if you're more invested in your own success than that of others. For me,
Mm,
that is the defining line in the sand. And if you can't look in the mirror every day and um, be more invested in the success of every single person around you, I'm working for the teams. They're doing all the hard work.
mhm,
My only job is to try and allow them to soar. And you ultimately, I believe in every fiber of my being, then have a healthier company. Because when people feel safe, when they feel honored, when mistakes are allowed, goodness knows I make mistakes every single day, if not multiple, um, then people will try new things. They don't feel scared of repercussion. So that's when innovation can happen.
mhm,
And I really believe that it is so much more rewarding because I always try and frame things like, okay, well, when I'm 80, God willing, I get that far. What am I going to remember? Um, Nothing, none of the tough work meetings. I won't remember any of them. I know that. But what I will remember is the people. Um, did I operate with integrity? Um,
mm,
I think leading with kindness cannot be underscored enough. I think, especially over the last couple of years, it's been so hard on everyone.
mhm,
Removing judgment, getting to a place of empathy, leading with kindness at every turn, is all that you have at the end of the day. That I
mhm,
believe that so
mhm,
fully, and so that's what and then you try and surround yourself with other leaders who believe that too, and
mhm.
that can echo the value system that you have.
Mm. That kindness feels so true. And I'm seeing a couple comments in the chat as well. And I think there has been for a long time a perception of it being a weakness. And there's a real distinction. You can be kind and clear and confident and ambitious and determined around it. But I'm curious, Jen, how you navigate between those two worlds and what does that felt like
Oh,
for
I've been faulted for it before. Absolutely. I've had people say, "Oh, you're like a golden retriever," or, honestly, like,
Bless.
okay, sure.
At the end of
And
the day, everyone wants to go hang out with the golden retriever then. Which,
well,
which,
this is
which,
this
speak
is
the truth.
people on boards and stuff
Yeah,
who
yeah,
might
yeah.
doubt,
But you know what? If I were to draw a line, I'm like, well, have you seen the growth of her team and how loyal her team is?
Well, I mean, you just have to go waters off a duck's back and take, that's people who don't understand that approach. And it's not for everyone. But I so fully believe that it leads to a healthier company, that if ever it doesn't work for people that I'm surrounded with that are determining my employment, that's a line in the sand for me. It doesn't work anymore. And I think kindness can often get confused with weakness. And what we talk about in our teams is being kind isn't not having the difficult conversations. That's actually the opposite of unkind.
Mhm.
That's being unkind.
Yeah.
So if you aren't having those challenging conversations, giving direct one-on-one feedback in a safe space, that is being kind. Working for others, working to develop them, giving them the grace to pivot and change. That's part of being kind, I think. It's not being so nice that you avoid the difficult conversations. I think it's just the approach and having them in safe spaces where people can hear them, where they don't feel attacked. They're not public. I know there's a lot of companies trying on this instant feedback publicly. I don't believe in that, because anytime
Mhm.
you're putting someone into a place of possibly feeling embarrassed, then that's not kind. But
Mhm.
also
Yeah.
giving people feedback, helping them pivot when they need to, when they're stuck in their careers, all of those things, I think are part of operating with integrity and treating people with the utmost of respect, regardless of what stage or position they are in the company.
And that gives the kindness to others with that respect, and it's also self-kindness too, when you fully are in accountability and responsibility for that too. I'm going to switch gears to what feels like a little bit of a 180, and there's a thread here. But Alex in the chat had a really great question. And this is, as someone, you, Jen, who is experienced working in technology and actively working on not only reducing gender gaps, but also BIPOC and underrepresented social issues, how do you see the role in the digital divide and digital equity plays with inclusion? So connectivity, affordability, digital skills, et cetera.
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, there's so many barriers to break down, isn't there still? I think it's making sure that everybody can be included in conversations, even old world notions of things like boards. They used to have to be, you'd have to invest in a company to get on a board. And there's still a lot of people that believe in that, but when you need to have people to invest to get on a board, then you get a certain kind of board. You need to look at people bringing different perspectives. And I think, with everything, getting people to understand, and it is a process. And we spend a lot of time in our company. As soon as you join, you have diversity and inclusivity training, as leaders, as team members. What does that mean? To really embody that you are better at your job when you've got lots of different voices and realms of experience around you, removing financial barriers to entry. I gave the board example, but that is something that doesn't create a diverse environment, because traditionally old white males get cut into deals. It's what happens.
Mhm, mhm.
And so you're on the golf course, whatever it happens, then you're in the deal, then you're in the boardroom, then you got the money to invest, so you get in the board, so you get a voice.
So you get the more money. So then for the next round, you
Exactly, like on and on it goes, right? So how do you break those cycles? And it's having the courage to say, um, within your realm, again, boiling one pot, not everything, because you can't, if it feels too amorphous, it's too hard to know where to start. But just taking those steps to say, I'm going to surround myself in my position with voices that are different than mine. So, when you write down your trusted confidants, I always do that. Who are my trusted confidants? Are they echoing my opinion back to me? Is that why? Like, a lot of self-examination? Or am I going to people that are going to have very different opinions than me, very different backgrounds? And that's going to lead to a healthier decision tree, and will do better if we're working for all of these people. The more I can keep that in mind, the better result for all of these people with different backgrounds and demographics and needs.
Mhm. And it strikes me that that would then result in different conversations that you have with your team, your board, at home events. I'm curious, Jen, as you've been, because I look back at the many years you've now been doing this role, and I imagine the tone and perhaps the way and even content of conversations has changed over that period of time as we have all continued to evolve, as the needs and pressures and timeliness has continued to shift and evolve. So I'm curious how you've been and what the conversations have been evolving from everything from at the board and shareholder and stakeholder level to at home with your daughters.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great question. I think the notion of, I was reading an article that a lot of the business schools are you know, changing the lesson to be we're working for all the shareholders to we're working for all the stakeholders. Because when you're working just for the shareholders, then everybody's learning. And I never went to business school. I'm getting my MBA on the job, and I made everyone very aware that that's a risk that's happening. But um, that changing those types of messages helps. We are working for all the stakeholders, for the employees. Yes, of course, shareholders matter tremendously, but it can't just be about the bottom line, because then none of the changes that we need to see in society happen. And I do think it starts with the private industry. Um, with my girls and my son, I hope that I see, lots of change. My oldest daughter just started at Queen's University in her first year in September, and walking around that campus, I was like, what is that feeling I feel? I couldn't, other than like, oh my gosh, my daughter's leaving and my heart feels bruised and it's about to pop out. Um, but also one of hope, hope for the future, uh, hope for what the changes, the more, we still face so many challenges, as women, as business, people. And again, I think the more that uh, you can be value based. For me, that is the line in the sand. That this is how I want to conduct my work, my life. Again, I believe all you have at the end of the day is how you've treated people and how they feel, and do they feel, honored in what they've done. And the more that we can perpetuate that approach, um, I'm hoping that we can see more change, more global leaders. Think about, if there was more women prime ministers and presidents. I really believe it would be a different world, truly.
I love that you talk about the hope and the pathway towards that, because for me that feels like such a tangible piece that each of us can work on every day. Maybe we, to your point, can't boil all the pots with all the things and do all the takeovers the next day, but each day we have an opportunity to decide how we lead, how we show up, how we activate it, and how we, with our activation, with all of our capitals, really vote in favor of the world that we want to see and that we want to be a part of. And I was reflecting, Jen, how you have for many years now made the decision to continuously show up not only for the causes that Thunderbird and Atomic Cartoons has been awarded for, but selfishly for the forum as well. And it has not only been financial contribution, it's been so much more than that, because you've given your time as a mentor, your wisdom capital. I mean, my gosh, the last half hour, talk about wisdom capital right there. You've donated your service, your social capital, your community, and you've really shown up in so many ways. And I would love to hear, why is that something that you continue to choose to invest in? Your story, I was thinking about that story of Barbie so many years ago, and where Mattel and where Barbie have evolved to. And it certainly feels true to me that there is still so much work to do, but I'm curious how you view the continued choice to supporting women entrepreneurs.
Oh my gosh, I feel so passionate about it. I think it just goes down to that root of, if you can see it, you can be it. And if we can normalize the conversation, and the more women that feel supported and honored and safe in stepping forward, and that it's okay to make mistakes, and that I can look around and see other women that have done it and made mistakes and stumbled and picked themselves up and been fine, and also found a balance. It's very scary. Um, I've had lots of women over the years say, I don't want to take the promotion because what if I want to start a family one day, or, and those types of conversations, which are real and I get, but saying, it's okay, you can do all of that. And there's a way to do it. You don't have to be, having it all at the exact same time, but you can, you do your best every day. You're going to get out of it what you put into it. And then you start again the next day. And again, I think I'm so passionate about it because, I love women. I have all sisters. Um, my mom was, an immigrant from Scotland when she married my dad. Didn't have the opportunity to go to university or whatnot. We all saw my mom go through university in her 30s. She graduated at 40. We were all at the ceremony when she graduated, and then we watched her go on to become a medical researcher with Johnson and Johnson. After her, graduation at 40, she didn't start working till 41, 42, her first jobs. And that lesson, and it's never too late. And look what happens when you can see women soar.
Mm.
And, she had told me when she said she was going to start school, I was around 10. I said, "Why are you doing that, Mommy?" And she said, "Because if something ever happens to your dad, I don't want to feel like I can't support you guys. I don't want that." And so I think that was shaped me. And then
Mhm.
the power of watching, I love women and I love the approach of women. And I really believe, making a broad generalization, but that, again, if there was more female leaders, the world would just be a better place.
Your advocacy for fear is so strong. I feel it. I feel it. And I know we're coming to time, and I really want to ask the question. Amy Carruthers, you popped it into chat, and I'm going to give Amy a shout out. She's also an incredible champion and
I'm a
supporter of women.
huge fan of Amy.
Love
Hi,
Amy.
Amy. Yeah.
um, Amy's comment is so thoughtful because it's such it feels so tangible and real, and actually how a lot of change within businesses can be affected. And the question is, can you comment on your approach to compensation / negotiations, especially with respect to the cycle of influence you mentioned? Does thinking of this way help you advocate for yourself and contribution / value of others?
Absolutely. That's a great question. And, we try to make sure that we're always dealing in facts and data, without, taking all the emotion out of it. So from a business point of view, we gather statistics about our company, not because we're trying to judge or do anything, but because we're trying to make sure the benefits work for everyone. If we uh, find out who our, employees are and what they really need, we can cater to that. With regard to advocating for yourself and others, I think, right now our company is 50% male, 40% female, and 10% gender fluid. There has to be, we use third-party gut checks. We've worked with people like Pride at Work in Canada, PwC, to sort of do audits. Like, are we paying fairly? Is there any disparity? I always think, CFOs never look around at their finance department and go, "Well, the bottom line's great. We've got no debt. We're making money. I don't need to make any changes." Business operations are like, onto that, right? Um, so you can't really look around and go, "I think it feels like a gut check. Everyone's getting paid fairly, and we're a diverse company. I see that." That I think it has to be handled with the same level of importance and
And
dedication
rigor, and the
and
rigor of it.
and rigor. That's it.
Mhm.
That other aspects of the business are looked at.
Mhm.
Because my goodness, imagine going up against an audit committee and being like, gut check, I think the financials are going to be great. Yeah, I got a good
Yes,
feeling.
we're fine.
Yeah, I got a good feeling about this. But for the most part, I still hear leaders say, well, it feels okay to me. It
Mm,
feels okay what they're getting paid. Well, how do we know?
mhm.
Let's make sure it's completely fair. And how do we know if we're doing our best diverse hiring practices? Otherwise, it just becomes a guess, and that's not what we want to do.
Mm. The rigor and the commitment to that is so clear to me. Thank you, Jen, for giving us wisdom capital, inspiration capital, resource capital, time capital, all of it so much. That was so enriching. I know it really resonated with everyone. Thanks so much for sharing with us. I could continue with you all day long, and I'm committed to letting you go on time. So thank you.
Well, I just want to thank you, Paulina and the forum, for all you guys do for everyone and the way you lift women. I continue to be mad fan of it all. And thank you to everyone that joined. If anyone ever wants to reach out and link in or anything like that, I love that as well. And really appreciate getting invited to this amazing community of women today. Thank you all so much.
Mm. Thank you, Jen. Thank you. Folks, thank you so much for taking time with us today. Thank you to our donors, sponsors, mentors, and all of our community who shows up to activate their capital in support of the forum and women entrepreneurs across Canada. This was our 6th Impact event, and we are going to continue hosting them because they resonate, and selfishly, we love them, and such a great opportunity to gather. I'm going to take a moment to remind everyone that on the forums front, we have 2 programs that are open for applications right now. 3 if you count our ongoing mentor program applications, but right now applications are particularly open for the Odlum Brown Forum Pitch and for E-Series. If you want to learn more about them, they're all on our programs website. They're an incredible way that women entrepreneurs can get plugged in with support, community, and activation to see them thrive. We love taking questions around them. We love introductions, something we know that often women need a little bit of a tap on the shoulder and someone who says, hey, we believe in you. Hey, I think you'd be amazing at this. Hey, I want to see you shine. Hey, this would be a great resource. So please tap them. Please email us their names. We love tapping them. We love saying, hey, we have someone from the community who thinks you're amazing. Come join and be part of this support. And as always, I really like to close with an invitation to share any ideas or considerations you have for us as either as a donor or someone who champions our work. If you have ideas or ways that you would like the forum to build greater relationships with you in our community or create other ways of engagement or impact, please feel free to reach out. I really do welcome those conversations. We'll pop my email into the chat. You should all have it though through the calendar invite, but please do stay connected, and I look forward to our next conversation, and we'll be online with you on all the channels in the meantime. Please feel free to unmute yourselves if you would like as we say goodbye, and have a great rest of your day, everyone.